Captain Jake Morrison stared at his screen and felt his heart stop. The numbers made no sense. Where New Haven Colony should have shown 12,000 life signs, there was nothing. Just empty space and cold rock. "Run the scan again," he told his communications officer, Lieutenant Mary Collins. His voice sounded calm, but his hands shook as he gripped his chair. Mary's fingers flew over her controls. The UHS Discovery hung in space 3 million miles from New Haven, close enough to see the planet clearly. Close enough to know something was terribly wrong. "Same reading, Captain," Mary said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "No life signs, no power signatures, no radio signals." Jake closed his eyes. He had been making supply runs to New Haven for 3 years. He knew the colony manager, Bill Rogers. He had shared dinner with the farming families. He had watched their children play in the settlement's Central Park. "Take us in," he ordered. The Discovery moved slowly toward New Haven. Through the main view screen, Jake could see the planet growing larger. It looked different somehow. The green fields and blue rivers that made New Haven special were gone. Everything looked gray and dead. Commander Ryan Bell, the ship's science officer, worked at his station with quick, nervous movements. "Captain, I'm picking up high levels of radiation, the kind that comes from military-grade plasma weapons." "How much radiation?" Jake asked. "Enough to kill everything on the planet," Ryan said. "Whatever happened here, it happened fast and it was thorough." As they got closer, the truth became clear. New Haven's cities were gone. The farms were gone. Even the mountains looked different, melted and reformed by incredible heat. The entire world had been turned into a ball of glass and ash. Jake activated the ship's long-range communicator. "This is Captain Morrison of the UHS Discovery calling Earth Command. Emergency Priority 1. New Haven Colony has been destroyed. Repeat. New Haven Colony has been destroyed." The response came quickly. Admiral Lisa Carter's face appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman who had fought in the border wars 20 years ago. Jake had never seen her look scared before. "Are you certain, Captain?" she asked. "Completely certain, Admiral. 12,000 people are dead. The entire planet has been glassed." Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. "Any sign of who did this?" Ryan looked up from his scanner. "Admiral, the energy signatures match Zelkari weapons. This was a full orbital bombardment." The name hit the bridge like a physical blow. Everyone knew about the Zelkari Collective. They were an alien empire that had been expanding through this part of space for decades. They were known for their cruelty and their belief that other species were inferior. "Begin a full investigation," Admiral Carter ordered. "I want every piece of evidence you can find. Earth needs to know exactly what happened here." Jake spent the next 6 hours watching his crew work through the wreckage of what had been a thriving human colony. They found the remains of homes, schools, and hospitals. They found children's toys melted into unrecognizable shapes. They found the colony's final transmission. The message had been sent by Sarah Mitchell, New Haven's emergency coordinator. Her voice was calm even as death approached from space. "This is New Haven Colony to anyone who can hear us. We are under attack by unknown ships. They're firing on our cities. Please, if anyone receives this message, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we tried to surrender. Tell them we had children." The transmission ended abruptly in a burst of static. Jake felt anger building in his chest. These people had done nothing wrong. They had been farmers and teachers and doctors trying to build a new life among the stars. They had families and dreams and hopes for the future. Now they were all dead because the Zelkari had decided they didn't deserve to live. The news reached Earth through quantum relay channels in just 4 hours. President Helen Foster called an emergency meeting of the Terran Council immediately. The most powerful leaders in human space gathered in the council chambers beneath Geneva. Senator Paul Grant spoke first. He was a thin man who believed in peaceful solutions to every problem. "We need to approach this carefully," he said. "One act of violence should not lead to a war that could destroy both our species." General Kate Murphy stood up slowly. She was older than most of the council members, with gray hair and scars from a dozen battles. "Senator, with respect, this was not one act of violence. This was genocide. 12,000 innocent people were murdered in their homes. "The general is right," said President Foster. "We cannot let this pass without a response. The question is, what kind of response?" Dr. Amy Walsh had been sitting quietly in the corner. She was the head of the Colonial Defense Initiative, a program most council members knew little about. She cleared her throat and everyone turned to look at her. "There is something you all need to know," Dr. Walsh said. "Something we have kept secret for 50 years. She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. Images of massive shipyards appeared, hidden throughout the solar system. Thousands of ships in various stages of construction lined the screens. "We call it Project Armada," Dr. Walsh explained. "After the first contact with hostile alien species 30 years ago, we decided that humanity needed to be prepared for exactly this kind of situation." The council members stared in amazement at the images. Ships the size of cities hung in hidden bases near Mars and Jupiter. Smaller vessels swarmed around them like metal insects. "How many ships?" President Foster asked. 900,000, Dr. Walsh said simply. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. 900,000 ships. It was more than any nation had ever built. It was more than most people thought possible. General Murphy smiled for the first time in hours. "The Zelkari have perhaps 50,000 ships in their entire fleet. They are scattered across dozens of star systems." Senator Grant looked pale. "You're talking about launching the largest military operation in human history." "No," President Foster said firmly. "We're talking about showing the galaxy that humanity protects its own. The Zelkari destroyed one colony. They need to understand what that choice will cost them." The vote was taken quickly. Every member of the council raised their hand in agreement. The response would be swift, overwhelming, and absolute. As the council members filed out to begin preparations, Dr. Walsh remained behind with President Foster. Through the window, they could see the lights of Geneva twinkling in the darkness. "You sure we're ready for this?" President Foster asked. Dr. Walsh nodded. "We've been ready for 50 years. The crews are trained. The ships are armed and fueled. All we need is the order." President Foster thought about the children of New Haven, who would never grow up. She thought about their parents who had died trying to protect them. She thought about the message from Sarah Mitchell, calm and brave even as her world ended. "Give the order," she said. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, 900,000 ships began to wake up. Their crews had trained for this day, their entire lives. They knew what the Zelkari had done. They knew what humanity's response would be. The largest military force in galactic history was about to launch, and its target was an empire that had made the worst mistake possible. They had killed humans. Now they would learn what that really meant. Admiral Ben Parker had commanded fleets before, but nothing like this. From the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, he watched as ships emerged from hidden bases across the solar system. They came from behind asteroids, from beneath the ice of Europa, from massive underground facilities on Mars. The sight took his breath away. Captain Nina Roberts guided her destroyer squadron out of the Titan shipyards. Around her, hundreds of other ships were doing the same thing. The coordination was perfect. 50 years of planning showed in every movement. "Control, this is Destroyer Group 7, Nina spoke into her communicator. "We are clear of the yards, and moving to formation point." "Roger, Group 7, came the reply. "You are ship number 437,000 to clear berth. Proceed to grid 77 Alpha." Nina shook her head in amazement. 437,000 ships had already left their hiding places. There were still hundreds of thousands more to come. The largest ships were truly massive. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities moved slowly through space, their hulls bristling with weapons. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Behind them came heavy cruisers, fast destroyers, and clouds of fighters that looked like metal snowflakes against the stars. Dr. Amy Walsh stood in the main control center, deep beneath the moon's surface. Banks of screens showed the fleet assembly, from every angle. Her life's work was finally happening. For 50 years she had prepared for this day. "Status report," she called out. Lieutenant Commander Tony Lewis looked up from his station. 820,000 ships have cleared their berths. The remaining units will be ready within 6 hours. Any problems with the crews? None, Tony replied. Every ship is fully manned and ready for combat. The training programs worked perfectly. Dr. Walsh nodded. The crews had been preparing for this mission their entire careers. Most of them were children when Project Armada began. They had grown up knowing that someday they might need to defend humanity against threats from space. On the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, Admiral Parker received a priority message from Earth. The Zelkari had responded to humanity's accusations about New Haven. Their message was short and insulting. The holographic image of Ambassador Kethvar appeared on the main screen. The Zelkari was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and cold black eyes. When he spoke, his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. The human government has made false accusations against the Zelkari collective, the ambassador said. The colony world you call New Haven was destroyed because it harbored dangerous criminals and terrorists. We took necessary action to protect the region from their influence. Admiral Parker felt anger rise in his throat. 12,000 innocent people, including children, had been called criminals and terrorists. The ambassador continued. To show our generosity, the collective will pay compensation of 1 million credits to the human government. We consider this matter closed. The message ended abruptly. Admiral Parker stared at the blank screen for a long moment. 1 million credits, less than $100 for each human life that had been taken. Communications, Admiral Parker said. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Zelkari response has been received and noted. Colonel Sam Taylor walked through the military transport UHS Hammer, checking on his Marines. The ship was one of thousands carrying ground forces to support the fleet operation. Each Marine knew their mission and was ready to carry it out. Kanktor, are the men doing, Sergeant? Sam asked Sergeant First Class Kevin White. They're ready, sir, Kevin replied. They've seen the footage from New Haven. They know what we're fighting for. The Marines aboard the transport ships were not planning to invade Zelkari worlds. Their mission was more specific. They would capture military installations and secure important prisoners. The plan was to show the galaxy that humans could fight, with honor even when seeking justice. Commander Alex Stone piloted his reconnaissance ship UHS Shadow deep into Zelkari space. His mission was to gather intelligence on enemy positions and defenses. What he found shocked him. The Zelkari military was spread thin across their empire. Their ships were old and poorly maintained. Many of their bases operated with skeleton crews. They had grown lazy and confident after decades of easy victories against weaker species. This is Shadow 1 to Fleet Command, Alex transmitted on a secure channel. Intelligence package is complete. The enemy is not prepared for a major assault. Admiral Parker reviewed the intelligence reports in his private cabin. The Zelkari had about 50,000 ships total, but they were scattered across hundreds of star systems. The largest concentration was only 5,000 ships at their main naval. Based in Dr. Walsh joined him by holographic projection. The intelligence confirms our battle plan will work, she said. 7 simultaneous strikes on their major military centers. They won't be able to respond effectively. What about civilian casualties? Admiral Parker asked. The targeting computers are programmed to avoid all civilian areas, Dr. Walsh assured him. We will destroy their military capability while leaving their people unharmed. It's important that the galaxy sees the difference between how we fight and how they fight. The final ships of the human armada moved into position. 900,000 vessels spread across space in perfect formation. Each ship knew its target and its mission. The crews were calm and professional, but underneath their training burned the memory of New Haven. Captain Nina Roberts received her final briefing from Admiral Parker. Her destroyer group would hit the Zelkari naval base at Kexthor. Intelligence showed it was defended by 2,000 enemy ships. Your force will outnumber them 20 to 1, Admiral Parker told her. The attack should be over quickly. What, if they try to surrender? Nina asked. Accept their surrender if they offer it, Admiral Parker replied. But make sure they understand that their military days are over. The Zelkari war machine ends today. On Earth, President Helen Foster addressed the planet. Her speech was broadcast to every human world and transmitted to alien governments across the galaxy. The Zelkari Collective has murdered 12,000 innocent human beings, she said. They have called our farmers and teachers and children terrorists. They have offered us money in exchange for human lives, as if our people were cattle to be bought and sold. She paused and looked directly into the camera. Today, humanity responds. We launch not to conquer, but to defend. Not to destroy a people, but to eliminate a threat. The Zelkari will learn that human life is precious beyond measure, and that we will defend it with everything we possess. In hidden listening posts throughout the galaxy, alien intelligence services detected the massive human fleet movement. The numbers they reported seemed impossible. No species had ever assembled such a force. On the Zelkari homeworld, War Marshal Vex Tool received the first reports of human ship movements. He dismissed them as exaggerations. Humans were a minor species with limited military capability. The destruction of one small colony should have taught them their place. Double the patrols around our outer bases, he ordered his subordinates. If the humans are foolish enough to seek revenge, we will crush them quickly. Admiral Parker stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance as the final countdown began. Around him, 900,000 ships waited for his signal. The largest military operation in galactic history was about to begin. All ships, this is Admiral Parker, he broadcast on the fleet frequency. In 60 seconds, we jump to hyperspace. Remember why we fight. Remember New Haven. Remember that we are humanity's sword and shield among the stars. The countdown reached 0. In perfect synchronization, 900,000 human ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them the promise of justice and the weight of human fury. The Zelkari were about to learn that some mistakes carry a price too terrible to imagine. The first Zelkari patrol ship to see the human fleet never got a chance to send a warning. Lieutenant Dave Miller, piloting his fighter from the carrier UHS Thunder, watched the alien vessel explode in a brief flash of light. Around him, thousands of other human ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Captain Nina Roberts stared at her tactical display in amazement. Her destroyer group had arrived at the Zelkari naval base of Kexthor exactly on schedule. The sight before her was everything the intelligence reports had promised and more. 2,000 Zelkari ships hung in space around their base, completely unprepared for what was coming. They moved in lazy patrol patterns, their crews probably, drinking coffee and playing games. They had no idea that 40,000 human warships had just appeared behind them. All ships, this is Captain Roberts, Nina broadcast to her task force. Weapons free. Target military vessels only. Remember, we are here for justice, not revenge. The battle began with a sound like thunder rolling across the stars. 40,000 human ships opened fire at the same time. The space around Kexthor lit up with energy beams and missile trails. The Zelkari ships tried to respond, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. For every one of their vessels, 20 human ships focused their fire. The alien warships exploded one after another like firecrackers on a holiday. Commander Rick Stone, leading a cruiser squadron, watched his weapons officer destroy 3 enemy ships in less than 10 seconds. Target that battleship, he ordered, pointing at a large Zelkari vessel trying to escape. 8 human cruisers turned their guns on the enemy battleship. The alien vessel's shields flared and died under the concentrated fire. A moment later, it broke apart in a brilliant explosion. Similar scenes played out in 6 other star systems at exactly the same time. Human fleets appeared without warning and destroyed everything the Zelkari had built. 60 years of military expansion was being erased in a matter of hours. At Thekmor Prime, the Zelkari military headquarters, Captain Ellen Price led the largest human battle group. 60,000 ships under her command faced the most heavily defended system in the Zelkari Empire. Captain, her weapons officer called out, I count over 8,000 enemy ships in this system. Ellen smiled grimly. 8,000 against 60,000. I almost feel sorry for them. The Zelkari base at Thekmor Prime was built inside a massive asteroid. Its weapons were powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. Under normal circumstances, it would have been nearly impossible to capture. But these were not normal circumstances. Ellen's ships spread out in a perfect sphere around the asteroid base. Every weapon they possessed pointed at the Zelkari stronghold. The alien defenders opened fire first, their massive guns sending death across space. Several human ships took hits, but for every ship they lost, the humans destroyed 50 Zelkari vessels. The math was simple and terrible. The Zelkari were being crushed by sheer numbers. All ships concentrate fire on the base's main weapons, Ellen ordered. Let's end this quickly. 60,000 human ships fired at the same target. The asteroid that housed the Zelkari headquarters cracked like an egg. Secondary explosions rippled through the rock as ammunition stores and fuel tanks exploded. Admiral Tony Mitchell coordinated the entire operation from his command ship, UHS Retribution. Banks of screens showed him the progress of all 7 battles, happening across Zelkari space. The results were the same everywhere, complete human victory. Status report, he called to his staff. Major Lisa Hayes looked up from her console. Kexthor base has fallen. Estimated enemy losses 100%. Our losses, 12 ships damaged, none destroyed. Rivtal shipyards are burning, reported Lieutenant Colonel Mark Davis. Enemy losses, 98%. Our losses, minimal. The reports continued in the same pattern. Wherever human ships appeared, Zelkari resistance crumbled. The aliens had grown soft after decades of easy victories. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology and overwhelm their numbers. On the Zelkari homeworld, War Marshal Vextol stared at the incoming reports with growing horror. In less than 6 hours, humanity had destroyed most of his empire's military capability. Ships that had taken decades to build were now floating debris. How many human ships are attacking us? He demanded of his intelligence chief. General Kriktar, his second-in-command, could barely speak. Our estimates suggest over 800,000 vessels, War Marshal, perhaps more. Vextol felt his legs give out beneath him. 800,000 ships. It was impossible. No species had ever built such a fleet. The humans had hidden their true strength perfectly. Send a message to their fleet commander, Vextol ordered. Offer to negotiate. Meanwhile, in the Veltara system, Commander Steve Walsh led a group of fast destroyers against a Zelkari supply convoy. The alien ships were trying to escape with their cargo of weapons and ammunition. Don't let them reach hyperspace, Steve ordered his squadron. Those supplies were meant to attack more human colonies. His destroyers moved like wolves among sheep. The Zelkari cargo ships were armed, but they were no match for human warships designed for battle. Within minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. Back at Thekmor Prime, Captain Ellen Price received a transmission from the surviving Zelkari forces. The message came from Admiral Korveth, the highest-ranking alien officer still alive. Human. Commander, the Zelkari admiral said, his voice shaking with fear. We surrender. We request terms for ending this conflict. Ellen looked at the wreckage floating around her ships. Thousands of Zelkari vessels had been destroyed in this system alone. The aliens' main naval base was a smoking ruin. I will relay your message to my superiors, Ellen replied. But understand this. The terms will not be gentle. You murdered innocent people. There are consequences for such actions. Admiral Mitchell received surrender offers from all 7 battle zones within the same hour. The Zelkari military had simply ceased to exist as an effective fighting force. What had taken them 60 years to build, humanity had destroyed in less than a day. The reports reached Earth quickly. President Helen Foster read the casualty figures with satisfaction. Human losses: 47 ships damaged, 3 destroyed, fewer than 200 crew members killed or wounded. Zelkari losses: over 40,000 ships destroyed, their entire military infrastructure in ruins. Dr. Amy Walsh stood in her control center, watching the final phases of the operation. 50 years of planning had resulted in perfect execution. The Zelkari would never threaten human colonies again. Begin Phase 2, she ordered her staff. Send the occupation forces. Throughout Zelkari space, human ships took control of what remained of alien military installations. Marine units led by Colonel Sam Taylor secured important prisoners and gathered intelligence about Zelkari operations. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as news of the human victory spread. In less than 24 hours, one of the most powerful military empires in known space had been completely destroyed. The humans had done something that most species thought impossible. On alien worlds, military leaders studied the reports and tried to understand what they meant. The humans had shown restraint, avoiding civilian targets and accepting surrenders, but they had also shown a capability for destruction that no one had imagined. As the human fleets consolidated their positions in former Zelkari territory, one message became clear to every government in the galaxy. Humanity would defend its people with overwhelming force. The destruction of New Haven had cost the Zelkari everything they had built. 900,000 human ships hung in space like a metal constellation, their message written in the wreckage of an empire. Touch one human colony, face the entire species. The galaxy would remember this lesson for generations to come. 3 months after the Great Battle, Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the observation deck of her flagship as it orbited the rebuilt world of New Haven. Below her, construction ships worked alongside colony vessels to rebuild what the Zelkari had destroyed. The dead world was coming back to life. Captain Jake Morrison walked beside her, pointing out the progress being made. "The memorial will be finished next week," he said. 12,000 names carved in black stone, each one surrounded by a garden. Lisa nodded as she watched the construction crews work. The memorial would stand at the center of New Haven's new capital city. Every person who visited the colony would see it and remember what had happened here. The Zelkari surrender had been complete and unconditional. War Marshal Vextol himself had come to Earth to sign the peace treaty. The once proud alien leader looked broken and defeated as he agreed to pay for the damages his people had caused. President Helen Foster had been firm but fair in the negotiations. The Zelkari would pay to rebuild New Haven and compensate the POW, families of those who died. They would also give up all their military weapons and agree to never attack another human colony. "We could have destroyed their entire civilization," President Foster had told the Galactic Council. "Instead, we chose to show mercy. This is the difference between humanity and those who would harm us." Dr. Amy Walsh reviewed the final reports from Project Armada in her office deep beneath the moon's surface. The operation had worked better than anyone had dared hope. 900,000 ships had performed perfectly, and the galaxy had learned to respect human strength. "What happens to the fleet now?" asked her assistant, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Davis. Dr. Walsh smiled as she looked at the deployment charts. "We spread them out across human space. Every colony, every trade route, every human world will be protected. The galaxy has seen what we can do when we're angry. Now they'll see what we do to keep the peace." The human fleet did not return to its hidden bases. Instead, the ships took up positions throughout human territory and beyond. Patrol groups moved through neutral space, making their presence known to anyone who might threaten humanity's interests. Captain Nina Roberts commanded one of these patrol groups. Her 20 destroyers moved through the border regions where human space met alien territories. Everywhere they went, alien ships gave them respectful distance. "Contact on sensors," her communications officer reported. 3 Vorthak heavy cruisers, approaching our position. Nina had dealt with the Vorthak before. They were raiders and pirates who attacked merchant ships and enslaved weaker species. They had always avoided human vessels, but now they seemed almost afraid. "Open a channel," Nina ordered. The face of a Vorthak captain appeared on her screen. The alien looked nervous as he spoke. "Human ship, we mean no trouble. We are just passing through this area." "See that you keep passing," Nina replied coldly. "And remember, we are always watching." The Vorthak ships quickly changed course and disappeared into hyperspace. Word of humanity's response to the Zelkari attack had spread throughout the galaxy. No one wanted to test human patience again. On Earth, representatives from dozens of alien governments requested meetings with President Foster. They came to offer trade agreements, defense pacts, and promises of friendship. Species that had ignored humanity for decades suddenly wanted to be allies. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zelkari was among the visitors. The once arrogant alien now spoke in humble tones as he requested permission to establish a new embassy on Earth. "The collective wishes to make amends for our past actions," he said during his meeting with President Foster. "We understand now that we were wrong about humanity." President Foster studied the alien ambassador for a long moment. "Your people killed 12,000 innocent humans because you thought we were weak. You learned differently. Make sure that lesson is never forgotten." The new embassy would be built next to the New Haven Memorial Gardens in Geneva. Every day, Zelkari diplomats would walk past the memorial and remember the price of their arrogance. Commander. Alex Stone continued his reconnaissance missions, but now his job was different. Instead of gathering intelligence for war, he monitored the galaxy for signs of trouble. His ship, the UHS Shadow, visited distant star systems and observed alien activities. Any species thinking about attacking human colonies now thinks twice. He reported to Admiral Mitchell during one of his regular briefings. "The word is out. Humanity protects its own." The rebuilding of New Haven became a symbol of human determination. Families of the original colonists returned to help build the new settlement. Schools and hospitals rose from the ashes of the old colony. Children played in parks where once there had been only death and glass. Sarah Palmer, the daughter of 2 New Haven colonists who had died in the attack, stood in the memorial garden on the anniversary of the tragedy. She was only 8 years old, but she understood what the carved names meant. "Mommy and Daddy are heroes," she told Captain Morrison, who had come to visit the memorial. "They died protecting our home." Jake knelt down beside the little girl. "Yes, they were heroes, and we made sure their sacrifice was not forgotten." Above them, human patrol ships moved across the sky in formation. The sight had become common on New Haven and every other human world. The fleet that had answered the Zelkari attack now served as a permanent guardian force. Dr. Walsh published her final report on Project Armada 6 months after the Great Victory. The document became required reading in military academies throughout human space. Its conclusion was simple but powerful. Humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our numbers, but our commitment to protecting each other. When threatened, we stand together. When attacked, we respond as one. This unity makes us stronger than any enemy we might face. The report also revealed the true scope of human industrial capability. The 900,000 ships of Project Armada had been built in secret over 50 years, but the shipyards that built them were still operating, still producing new vessels for the growing human fleet. "We are not a warlike species," Dr. Walsh wrote, "but we are a species that values life and freedom above all else. Anyone who threatens those values will face the full might of human determination." The Galactic Council voted to make humanity a permanent member with full voting rights. No one questioned the decision. The species that could build 900,000 ships in secret clearly deserved a place at the table where galactic policy was decided. President Foster's speech to the Council was brief, but memorable. "We came to the stars seeking peace and prosperity for all species. We found that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. Humanity will always be ready to defend what is right." 5 years after the New Haven attack, the galaxy had settled into a new pattern. Human patrol fleets moved freely through space, protecting trade routes and deterring aggression. Pirates and raiders found new jobs or new hiding places far from human territory. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, returned to New Haven one final time before retiring. The colony had grown into a major world with millions of inhabitants. The memorial still stood at its center, but it was now surrounded by a thriving city. As he walked through the memorial garden, Morrison read the inscription carved above the 12,000 names. They lived as free humans. They died as free humans. They will be remembered as long as humanity exists among the stars. The words captured everything that had happened since that terrible day when the Zelkari made their fatal mistake. One destroyed colony had indeed brought forth 900,000 ships, and those ships had changed the galaxy forever. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors but as guardians of peace and defenders of the innocent.